Welcome. This class is devoted to Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah comes at the end of the holiday of Sukkot. In Israel, Simchat Torah, the celebration of the conclusion of the reading of the Torah and the beginning of the new cycle, is observed in Israel on Shmini Atzeret, which is the day after Sukkot. Here in the diaspora, we have an extra day, as we always have for every holiday, and it's the day after Shmini Atzeret, but essentially Shmini Atzeret. So, the question we're going to address today is, why is it that the yearly cycle of concluding and starting the Torah is fixed for Shmini Atzeret / Simchat Torah, the day after Sukkot? Why now? In other words, there's a cycle that in the course of the year we finish the entire Torah. Any point could have been chosen to start or end. Why do we choose the day after Sukkot? To be sure, there are other customs where the cycle is read over the course of 3 years, although no longer extant, no longer observed. There was a time they were not widespread custom to finish the Torah in the course of 3 years. But today it's universally observed as a 1 year cycle, and for all Jews and all customs, Ashkenaz, Sephard, Yemenite, and so on, it all concludes on Simchat Torah. Why? The classic answer offered by Rabbi Nissim in his commentary on Tractate Megillah is this. It's appropriate, he writes, to read the last portion of the Torah following the festivals. Having concluded the festivals, we want to conclude with blessing, and the last portion of the Torah contains the blessings that Moses blesses the people before he passes away. Hence, it's read at the end of the festival season. We might ask, however, why not have these blessings on another holiday, Passover, the birth of our people? That should be the time when we conclude the Torah with the blessings for all of the Jewish people. But if we are looking for a time when we should conclude and begin the Torah, surely it should be Shavuot, because Shavuot is in fact the day that the Torah was given. Now, even though you might argue it was only given then, we hadn't really studied it, and there were many laws that were given subsequent to the giving of the Torah. In other words, the giving of the Torah was only the 10 Commandments. Many of the laws were given over the course of the 40 years, more specifically the first year and the final year. Most laws were given later, not actually at that moment, that holiday of Shavuot, 7 weeks after the Torah was given. So that wouldn't be the appropriate time to celebrate the entire Torah when we didn't really receive the entire Torah then. But the truth is we did. As Rashi brings in its commentary on the Torah from the famous Rabbi Saadia Gaon, that all 613 mitzvahs are in fact alluded to in the 10 Commandments. As Rabbi Saadia Gaon explains poetically in one of his works called Azharat, which means literally inspirational warnings, but really it's poetry. And there he explains or writes in poetic form, to be sung or read on Shavuot, how all 613 commandments fall under one of these 10 general commandments. Moreover, there are 620 letters to the 10 commandments, alluding to the 613 commandments and the 7 rabbinic laws added by the sages, or alternatively the 7 Noahide laws. All to say, on Shavuot, the entire Torah was given. To be sure, to be developed and articulated later as God communicates specific commandments, but it's really all there. So surely it's the appropriate time to start and end the Torah. Now the question is further underscored, friends, by the following. Where do we even learn that one ought to make a celebration upon concluding the Torah? Hence, Simchas Torah. In other words, not only do we finish reading it, but we make a celebration. Now, if we look at the source of where we that points to and tells us we ought to make a celebration, that source further underscores our question. Why aren't we making this conclusion and its accompanied celebration on Shavuot. Here is the source. The source is none other than King Solomon himself, the wisest of all men. The Medrash relates how God offered King Solomon anything that he would possibly desire. Rather than ask for gold or silver, King Solomon asks for wisdom, an understanding heart. The Medrash relates as follows. Said the Holy One, blessed be he to him, Shlomo, Solomon, you have asked for wisdom. You have not asked for wealth and possessions or the life of your enemies. I shall grant this to you, and also grant riches and possessions. He got this vision in a dream, and when he awoke, he realized it was true, because he was immediately endowed with this incredible wisdom. He was able to understand, as the Medrash goes on to say, if a donkey brayed, he knew what it meant. A bird chirped, he knew what it meant. So immediately he was given this incredible wisdom. And the next thing he did, he came to Jerusalem, stood before the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. That's the Holy of Holies. And there in the courtyard, offered up burnt offerings and peace offerings, and made a feast for all his servants. From here we learn, says Rabbi Eliezer, that a feast is made to celebrate the conclusion of the reading of the Torah. Meaning, as the commentators explain, he received all this wisdom then, which he, of course, he would only develop and articulate later and express, but he got it all contained, this ability to understand everything, and immediately he makes a celebration. So this underscores our question. On Shavuos, we are given everything, in essence. Just like Solomon received all the wisdom in essence, and even though he would only mine the riches that he received for the rest of his life, but the great wealth was bestowed then, and he made a celebration. So to us, the riches of the Torah were bestowed, granted to us on Shavuos. It's all there in the Ten Commandments. That ought to be the day. That's the source. Like King Solomon, when we make the celebration. Why is it that our sages chose Shmini Atzeret the day after Sukkot? The answer is because our sages wished that our celebration of the giving of the Torah be associated with the second set of tablets given on Yom Kippur, of which Sukkot immediately follows, and Shmini Atzeret right after Sukkot. Because there is a great virtue to the second set of tablets over the first, even though one would argue the second set of tablets were only issued because we had sinned, worshipped the golden calf. True, we repented, but surely the more virtuous of the two are the first set of tablets. But the truth is, it's not so. On some level, yes. The first set of tablets were this glorious moment in our history, 7 weeks after the Exodus, the apex of spirituality and piety and holiness and innocence. However, the beauty of the second set of tablets is it was earned. The first set of tablets were gifted to us. It followed the Exodus. The Exodus was our birth. No one has choice in their birth. It happens to us. We are born Jewish. God chose us. God gave us the Torah. That's glorious and wonderful. But richer and deeper is a relationship that we've invested in and earned. And invested in and earned, not merely notwithstanding our human limitations, but engaging them, which will mean failure and disappointment. And notwithstanding that, overcoming failure, overcoming even betrayal, and connecting to God through the dint of our own deep desire and effort, that is richer and more meaningful. And so therefore our sages wanted that we celebrate the giving of the Torah. Which level of Torah? Not the Torah that's gifted, that's an inheritance, but the Torah that is earned. And this is reflected, friends, in the following. Our sages say that had there not been the golden calf, we would never have forgotten anything we learned. With the sin of the golden calf, forgetfulness set in. Now the reality is forgetfulness is the human condition. So in other words, what they're saying is, had we not sinned and remained on the straight and narrow, remained righteous and pious and innocent, then this gift would have endured unfailingly. And we would never have forgotten it. This gift bequeathed to us by God. However, as a result of the transgression, as a result of the sin of the golden calf, forgetfulness, and then in order to acquire Torah, you have to toil. You have to work. It's got to come from you, and that's richer. And that's also reflected, friends, in the fact that the first set of tablets, God fashioned. The second, Moses made. God told him, you shall carve out the stone, quarry the stone, and carve out the letters of the second set of tablets. Again, symbolic of this time's man's search, man's effort, man's connection, not simply the recipients of God's benevolence and bestowal. Now this, of course, reflects the difference between the tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva. Leaving Egypt, we were born innocent, and we received the Torah with wholesomeness. We said to God, whatever you say we will do, then we will understand. At that moment, the evil inclination, we were cleansed of impurity, reborn innocent, pure as angels, like the tzaddik. But then the golden calf, and the subsequent repentance, the second set of tablets, the Baal Tshuva. Let's examine the difference between the tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva. The tzaddik really is someone who simply hasn't strayed from one's natural inclination. In the words of King Solomon, God makes man straight. Elikim na'aseh ha'adam yasher. It's we that get ourselves tied up in knots and complicate our own lives. But if we would just simply listen to our own natural instinct, we do the right thing at the end of the day. It is true we have two instincts. One that is selfish and pulls us towards destructive behavior. But if, again, we're in tune, and moreover, if we maintain equilibrium and a sense of what makes sense short-term and certainly long-term, we wouldn't stray. If we didn't allow ourselves to become distracted, confused, a little insane, and we remained rational, we would do the right thing. It just makes sense. It's the recipe for harmonious living, respectful borders. What's Torah all about? Borders and harmony, family, community, nations. It's a recipe for life. So that tzaddik, by keeping on the straight and narrow, really is simply followed what is the natural, logical, obvious course. He just simply hasn't strayed from the way God made him. So whose credit is all of this, really? Ultimately, God. He's simply remaining true to the path that the Almighty sets us upon. But the sinner has deviated and corrupted that path. Now to come back, that means I'm not simply following the path because I strayed from it. I've come back to the path through my choice, through my effort. It's almost unnatural. Teshuvah is almost unnatural. It's like you're given a recipe. Follow the recipe, things are going to work. You don't, it doesn't, and it's over. You can't expect not to follow the recipe for the cake and then somehow it should magically turn out. And yet the power of Teshuvah is just that we can rectify the past. So much so we can actually transform sins into virtues. That's not natural. That's not logical. And that's its beauty. the repentance digs far deeper than his natural makeup and discovers a divine source within that's truly able to achieve, well, the unexpected and the impossible. So the Baal Tshuva, unlike the Tzaddik, first set of tablets, the Tzaddik represents, the righteous represents simply staying the course. The Baal Tshuva has corrupted it, the sinner has corrupted it, and yet comes back. And comes back with even greater intensity. Consistent again with the second set of tablets. Through Teshuvah, having earned it, it's a much richer and deeper appreciation of Torah and relationship and connection to God. Furthermore, we see also the difference between the tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva. Again, nature versus novelty. The unexpected, the almost impossible. We see this in the following as well. In terms of engaging and affecting the world, the righteous only elevates that part of the world that is open to being elevated and refined. As we study in Chassidus, all of life is divided into two categories. There's a level of nature which is not evil, nor is it holy, but potentially holy. All kosher things. The word kosher means fitting. Fitting for what? Fitting to be elevated. So that tzaddik engages, all his pursuits are kosher, he never crosses the line, and he elevates that aspect of the world which is virtually waiting for it, and ready and appropriate. Again, the natural course. The Baal Tshuva sins, which means he engages in a nether world where it's evil and insidious and corrupt, and not given to elevation and holiness, not open, not even desireful of it. And yet, through repentance, even that deep darkness can be transformed. That's a far greater novelty again. Again, nature versus the true chidush, the true novelty. So all of this is expressed and comes to the fore in the second set of tablets. Now finally, friends, this explains the following. And that's why we have this great simcha on Simchas Torah. Hope I'll be able to convey the question properly. All right. So we said earlier, the Torah is arranged such that in the course of a year, we finish the entire Torah. Now we had asked, so it comes out, do we read the final portion on the day after Sukkot? Why? And the reason we'd offer it early from Rabbi Nissim is because after holiday season, it's appropriate to conclude with blessings, but we had asked, blessings are appropriate anytime, Passover, Shavuot, or any time of year. Why now? So we must probe deeper in seeing the connection between the final portion of the Torah and everything we said till now. And that is that we are celebrating the second set of tablets, not the first set. The joy of the Baal Tshuva, the passionate, intense joy of the penitent, as opposed to the righteous who stays the course, whose service of God is somewhat staid and predictable and confined and limited. The Baal Tshuva said moments ago, transforms even the greatest evil. That tzaddik would never cross that line and ought not and should not. But there must be some connection to the very parsha itself. Now the fact that there is a connection, I want to point out, is hinted to in the words of the Rambam, because the Rambam says like this. After having described how we simply divide the Torah into 53 portions and we start Shabbos Bereshis after Sukkot, we read the first portion, and then he says we conclude on Sukkot. But makes no mention there, as he goes through the yearly cycle, of any connection to Parshat V'zota Bracha, the final portion of the Torah, being that final portion. He, in other words, identifies all the names of the portions, doesn't identify the name V'zota Bracha. He just says we conclude on Sukkot, doesn't say that we read V'zota Bracha on Sukkot. However, when he talks about the special holiday readings, because the holiday readings don't follow the cycle. The cycle is one cycle. Chanukah, Purim, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah. We take out a second Torah, or we take out, well, if it's on Shabbos, would be in addition to the weekly reading. But even if it's not Shabbos, we read a section dealing with that relates to that particular holiday. So the Rambam says, and on the day after Sukkot, or the day after Shmini Atzeres in the diaspora, we read V'zota Bracha, and he says that in the same paragraph describing why we read certain portions on the specific holidays, conveying the idea that there's a connection between V'zota Bracha and on this day, which is the day of Simchat Torah, content-wise. Hope this point was clear. When he talks about the cycle, dividing it into 53 portions, he simply says in that context, we finish reading on Sukkot. That's it. Because what he's concerned explaining there is, that's when we finish reading. He's not talking there about what you read on what particular holiday. When in another paragraph he speaks on what you read on which holiday because it reflects the holiday, he makes the point, and the day after Shmini Atzeres we read V'zota Bracha, as if to say there's something in the content here of this parsha, aside from it being blessing, but we've asked that's appropriate anytime, something in this parsha that is intrinsically connected to Simchat Torah, which we'll now explain. Because we've now explained that Simchas Torah is all about what? The second set of tablets? And the power of Teshuvah? Which is why it comes after Shana Yom Kippur. We'll see how this is expressed in this Torah portion and in the final sentence. Friends, the final sentence of the Torah is perhaps the strangest of the entire Torah, certainly in light of Rashi's commentary. The final words of the Torah are, praising Moses about the great hand of God that the people saw, and all the miracle, hand of God, they're going through the desert, the Exodus, and all that, here's the final words, and all that Moishe did in the eyes of all Israel. I'm going to ask you for a chumash. Let me just get that 100%, just to get the full context and thrust of the, there must be one. Yeah, there we go. Not a regular chumash there? Look further, raise it. Okay, it doesn't matter. We'll get it from here. Okay. So friends, here's the final, I apologize for that. Let's get the flow of it. There arose not another prophet like in Israel like Moses, who knew God face to face. For all of the signs and wonders which God sent him to do in the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, his servants, and to his entire land, and to all of the great hand. Actually referring to Moses' hand. His strong hand. He received the Torah in his hands. I'm sorry, I stand corrected. And all of the great awesomeness. Rashi explains the awesomeness there refers to the awesome desert and the miracles that he did there, which Moses did in the eyes of all of Israel. So it concludes with the praise of Moses. So Rashi in his commentary says, what did he do in the eyes of all Israel? That everybody was present and witnessed at once. The breaking of the tablets. They were all gathered there at the foot of the mountain. And Moses comes down, seeing them worship the golden calf. and breaks the tablets. And Rashi concludes by saying, and God agreed and affirmed what he had done. Because we read earlier in the book of Exodus, you should now hew out a second set of tablets to replace the ones which you broke. Asher shibarto, that you broke. Now the word asher is redundant. In Hebrew you could just say sheshibarto, that you broke. In Hebrew, the word shin before a word makes the word that. The word asher also means that, but the Torah is precise to the nth degree. It could have simply said, sheshibarta. What's asher? The word asher also implies the word ashrei, fortunate. And Rashi concludes these words, Yeshakoyach, may your power be strengthened that you broke them. The final words of the Torah is God saying, thank you for breaking the tablets. And this is the final thing. The opening words of the last portion deal with the giving of the Torah, friends, initially. On Shavuot, that's how the final portion begins. But the conclusion is that you broke those because what are we pointing to here? The second set of tablets that came as a result of what? Of Teshuvah. And that's the whole celebration of Simchas Torah. Final word, and to get this to its depth. We're saying that the power of Teshuvah, the power of the second set of tablets is far greater than the first. That's the tzaddik, that's the Baal Teshuvah. We were invoking nature and unnatural. Let's just zero in on what is so unnatural about the Baal Teshuvah. Again, logic says like this. Logic says, a relationship with the God is through Torah. It's as simple as that. You observe His commandments, you're connected. If you don't, you're severed. God, Torah, the Jewish people. So if you sever, you're severed. Now, perhaps you get another opportunity to connect, but to mend that retroactively and turn that into a connection, that's what we're saying. The power of Teshuvah transforms the past. What does this mean? First of all, the past is over. You can't transform the past. You can learn from it. But how do you transform the past? But the real question is not simply a question of the limitations of time. The question is, you had an opportunity to connect. You didn't. That doesn't exist anymore. Here's what I'm driving at. And friends, I'm actually alluding to a famous talk of the Rabbi on a famous Simchas Torah in the early 80s. I'll tell you exactly the year for those that are listening. Tavshin. Even to give the date for us here. I guess in the back of the book they'll tell us. Perhaps. Yeah. Tavshin Gimel, Tavshin Dalet, 1984. No, it doesn't tell us here. Perhaps earlier. Torah, the truth is, Torah does not create the connection between us and God. It reveals the connection. The connection between a Jew and God is rooted deeper than Torah. It isn't a question of allegiance or otherwise. The essence of the soul is one with Hashem. And that essence can never be, there's no separation. Nothing can get in between the two. They're inseparable. Chelek alakam yimal mamash. That's what Shuvah really draws on. What Shuvah draws on is, at the end of the day, a person true to Shuvah is not simply a choice of lifestyle. I lived a lifestyle before that lacked meaning, now it's meaningful. It wasn't observant, I'm observant. That's not Teshuvah, although that might be an aspect of it. But there's something far deeper going on. I am a Jew and it can't be any other way. So I always was. I was just not in touch with my true self. It isn't a discovery of a particular path in life, of meaning which I've now embraced. Much deeper than that, it's the revelation of who I always was. And even when I was living a life of ignorance, disconnect, transgression, perhaps even deliberately, Deep down, I was always connected, even then. And Teshuvah unlocks that connection that always was. And that's why it's able to transform the past. Teshuvah says, notwithstanding how I, again, possibly even deliberately ignored you, I now acknowledge and embrace that even then I was connected and part of you. That was my deepest truth, which I did not consciously or behaviorally embrace. And because it was true even then, even in the darkest moments, those darkest moments can be transformed because that truth preceded the sin. To fix something, you've got to be around before to set it right retroactively. If you come afterwards, it's too late. It happened already. Johnny can't come lately, can't fix what happened in the past. And yet Tshuva does, because the truth of being the Baal Tshuva, of being Jewish, was before I sinned, and always was and remained. And therefore accessing that, I can fix what came later. By going back to the origins of what I always were, that I had till now failed to embrace. And now that I do, there's no greater joy. The crazy joy of Simchas Torah, the infinite joy of Simchas Torah is in the end this: no matter where I have gone and been and strayed, whether it was by choice or I didn't know better, I always was and couldn't be anything other than Jewish. And that I am celebrating today. And that's how the Torah ends. The Torah ends with God saying, Moses, Moishe Rabbeinu, good job. Thank you for breaking the tablets. You have revealed that my people are rooted in me deeper even than the law. Because, more clarity here, why did Moses break the tablets? He did it because he saw the people transgressing. He didn't want them to be found guilty by, here is the document, here is the marriage contract, in the words of our sages. No marriage contract, so they were unfaithful. When unfaithful? There was no contract. Destroyed the evidence. That's what our sages say. That's what he was doing. And God's saying, yeah. Because there is no evidence. They really were faithful all along. Even though they betrayed my law. Because they rooted deeper in my law than my law. A Jew is higher than Torah. The Torah itself concludes with, the soul is rooted as one with God. The Torah is God's wisdom, but the soul is a part of Hashem. So the Torah itself concludes with, and there's nothing greater than a neshama. And that's one of the meanings of the word Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah has two meanings. One meaning is, we celebrate with the Torah. We're celebrating the gift of the Torah. The deeper meaning is the Torah celebrates. What's the Torah celebrating? The Torah celebrates that the Jew reveals, let's rephrase that. The Torah celebrates the fact that it can reveal the truth that the Jew is even higher. That the soul is even greater than Torah. And that's manifest, we're running out of time here, that's manifest in the fact that a Jew has the power to innovate and reveal that which Torah itself didn't even know it contained. The true notion of Chiddush, by drawing on the very author of Torah. Torah is God's wisdom, but the Jew is rooted in the very author, and therefore we can, as it were, expand Torah to such a degree that it's a fundamental Chiddush, even novelty, even to Torah itself. This is a subject that needs to be explored and elaborated upon. Only the Jew can do that, because he's one with the author, and God can expand the boundaries of the wisdom that he had manifest initially, and expand the borders of that wisdom. So Simchas Torah, the Torah is celebrating with the Jew. The new words now, as if to say, I now appreciate his Torah, that my greatness is only because of you. You bear me aloft. What God wants is a relationship with the Jewish people in the deepest way, and for that reason he created the world and gave us the Torah. Even the Torah, which is the symbol of holiness and wisdom and every possible superlative, earthly or heavenly, that one could conceive. The Jew is higher than that, part of Hashem. And the Torah acknowledges this and celebrates that it's thanks to you, the Jew, that you connect me, because you embrace me and you study me and you innovate in me. You connect me and angels and all of heaven with the very essence of God. Lifted by the Jew. And quite literally, we take the Torah and we lift it. We become its feet. The Torah can't dance on its own. To make this very simple, the Torah can't dance on its own. It dances with the Jew. What is it to say? Judaism is not some disembodied moral value. It's all a philosophy. No, it's all about the Jew. So Judaism, the Torah, is lifted by the Jew. And where does that manifest? Even when the Jew doesn't keep and transgresses it and violates it, he's still connected. And he will come back. He must, she must, because that's who they are. And in so doing, will suffuse the Torah itself with a whole new vitality, a whole new appreciation, a whole new joy, a whole new simcha, a whole new passion that the Torah itself, in its own world of wisdom and pristine holiness, doesn't have. The Baal Tshuva lifts the tzaddik. The tzaddik feeds of the passion and the essential connection that only the Baal Tshuva embodies, and that unlocks that very truth within the righteous as well. So we reveal in Torah a depth that isn't even in Torah, and that's why it ends with Torah breaks. Thank you very much. Because Teshuvah and the Jew reveals a depth in Torah that's not there on its own. Torah is the wisdom of God, but the soul is a part of God. And that, in the end, is what it's all about. Hope this was somewhat clear, and I wish everybody a very joyous and celebratory and inclusive and embracing Simchas Torah.